that we're going to talk about here, okay? These are an average, okay? You did not marry a generalization. You're not going to marry an average person. You're marrying a specific person with specific character qualities and personality qualities and traits and so forth. And so don't ever get caught up in, oh, that's how you're supposed to be, or you should feel this way because you're the... No, you married a specific person. And there's a lot of things, both in our nature, which would include aspects of, oh, I'm a boy and not a girl, okay? So there's some things in me, like my production of testosterone, that is just hardwired into me as a man, okay? There's also attributes to my personality that are nature. When God knitted me together in the womb, He was thinking, all right, I've got a job I want done. I've got something to do here, and I need a phlegmatic, okay? And that's my personality trait, all right? We're going to talk about personality traits in a further lesson. And they're important to understand, and they're a piece to this puzzle. It's not all just, oh, I'm a man or I'm a woman. There are other issues that God made us and designed us to be certain ways, okay? So realize that. You're married to a specific person, not to a generalization. And then there's other issues of nurture and how you were raised and your background. Did you have a father figure in your life? Or maybe you didn't, or maybe he was abusive. Or maybe you didn't have a mom, or maybe you had a mom that was this certain way. There's all kinds of nurture issues that also play into who we became. All right, so even though we speak in some generalizations tonight, I want you to understand you're not married to one. Right? You're married to a specific person. They have a name. Please get to know them, because that is what really matters at the end of the day, is that you know and understand each other. Right? So these are just some helpful hints if you take it that way. I'll just give this as an example. I see some natural male tendencies in me when I'm in a box in my mind called preparing the message box. Okay, I get very focused. And men often, when they're engaged in activity, become focused. Whereas women have an easier time multitasking. And things seem to be more connected to everything else in their brains, okay? And I get into my box of I'm focused, I'm preparing the message, right? This is something. And then if Cindy comes in and she says, honey, you know, can you do this? I'm in my box. I'm focused. And it's hard for me to then go somewhere else. But she doesn't realize that. She doesn't, you know, now she knows, oh, it must be in his box. And if I seem to be, you know, a little bit like frustrated, it's because I'm in focus mode, okay? And then if she will ask me, well, can you do this? All right. And this and this and this, and then this one. And I'm in the middle of doing the first one. Can you try this, you know, over here and so forth? And I was like, yeah, I can't. I need to focus, okay, on one thing. It's a male characteristic. This is common in men and women. Not all men, not all women, but it's common in men and women. For men to struggle with getting out of their box and being multitasked or understand connections that seem abstract to us.
We solve the problem. We have the police to do this. So I just give it to him. And then when he's ready and wants to go in the things to do box, I don't have to say anything. I don't have to, you know, he's got the list and he knows exactly what I like. So.
Yeah, and then this is a good, you want to write little tips down. I'll give you a little tip right now. The honey-do lists are awesome for me. Especially if there's some general understanding of the timeline, okay? The time frame of when this needs to get done, because I'll think, okay, you want me to do this eventually, all right? So if the communication is, I need you to do this today, okay? Or by the end of the week, whatever it is, and some understanding of if it's a list, how that list is prioritized. Very helpful communication tool for us, okay? Now, also, I'm not only a man with my box, I'm also a phlegmatic man. Which means that criticism, a whisper of criticism, and this is true for most men, but phlegmatic men especially, a whisper of criticism sounds like a shout. Okay? She can say, help, and I hear, you jerk. Okay? That's how it can sound, right? She just means, I need help with something. I hear, I need help with this because you are completely inadequate. All right? So understand that. As my personality, being a phlegmatic man, a whisper of criticism can just sound like a scream, right? Why don't you try it this way? Really think I'm an idiot, don't you? Right? So this is something that I know about myself, and Cindy knows this about me. But I'll tell you this, we all need criticism. And the fact that it feels that way, dude, I am so much better when I get over myself in this and hear what she has to say. Because if I get in defensive mode, I lose. Some of the best advice I ever get in my life comes from this woman right here. Okay? Absolutely, hands down. I make my best decisions when I take her counsel very, very seriously. Alright? And if I get in my I can't take criticism mode, I lose that. I lose that. But it's good to understand that that's there. So she, like it says in Proverbs 5:15-2, the tongue of the wise makes knowledge acceptable. The tongue of the wise makes knowledge acceptable. There's a way to approach someone. You don't have to make it the hardest possible way for someone to receive something. If you're going to be wise, the tongue of the wise makes knowledge acceptable. Right? I'm going to maybe wait until he's not in his box to talk about it, right? It's just wisdom. I'm going to say it in a way that doesn't seem threatening or doesn't seem to implicate him in any way. Would you or could you? It's the way Ben Franklin reasoned with people. It appears to me he said it in non-threatening ways. All right? So there's the tongue of the wise that makes knowledge acceptable. And I want to say this too. We have to understand that in this whole valuing of men and women, there's a valuing of who we are too, just the way that God made us. There are some things in society we tend to appreciate and value. For example, very charismatic people. Okay, sanguines. That's the personality characteristic. We're not all that. We're not all designed to be that way. And we feel like, oh, they're the great people. They've got the personality and the charisma. And, I just wish I could be them, right? Scripture says in Ephesians 2:10 that you are His workmanship, created for good works in Christ that He prepared you ahead of time for. And He prepared us to do it together. And there's strengths and weaknesses that we have that help each other to do more than one poor charismatic guy could ever do on his own, because he'll get an idea a minute and not be able to focus, not be able to execute it, and find himself a very frustrated individual if he doesn't have the other characteristics and attributes helping and supporting. Okay? Psalm 139 says, I am fearfully and wonderfully made. You knit me together in my mother's womb. And in 1 Corinthians chapter 12, he talks about it. He says, if everybody was an eye, where would the hearing be? If everybody was an ear, where would the sense of smell be? We have to learn to value these differences. That's what that viva la différence, right? We value differences. We don't try to diminish it. Say, why can't you just be more like me? It was interesting, this comedian was talking about this, and there's probably some truth to this. He said, whenever I ask a woman to describe her perfect man, she describes another woman to me. I want her to be sensitive. I want her to be this. I want her to be that. Right? We have to value these differences and not wish, I wish they would change. Because we have to understand there is strength in difference. You know what you don't have differences? You have kids with like two heads when you have inbreeding and stuff like that, right? We need variety in our gene pool. Okay. All right, here's another way to look at these things. Every strength has an equal and opposite weakness. It's not even, it's just two sides of a coin. All right? So if you're a person that you're naturally empathetic, it can be, you can find yourself being moody. All right? If you're naturally detailed, God bless them, I'm not one of them. It can lead to perfectionism. And we need them. Oh man, we need people that are detailed. This guy was talking about it, he said, there's the child born from perfect land, okay? and it's the melancholy. The child born in perfect land. And then there's the child born in happy land. We like hanging out with the child born in happy land and fun land, right? But if I'm flying in a plane at 24,000 feet, I want to be in a plane designed by the child from perfect land. Okay? We need these things. Not the guy from happy land. You'd be like, oh, look at fire! Let's make another one. This is great. So driven people can appear uncaring. Fun-loving people can sometimes be careless. Right? Understand these tendencies. Here, I'll give an example in our life just of the nature versus nurture. This was a nurture issue. I saw my mom sometimes, it seemed like she was disapproving of how my dad would spend his time. Okay? And now here's another common one. Women hate nothing more than to see a man inactive. Just face up to it, okay? Women have little antennas. There's inactive man somewhere. You know, they sense it. It would be funny if it wasn't true. But her reaction to it, I could sense her disapproval of my dad, right? That it got into me. And I took on that offense for him. And it made me even more sensitive to that issue of, you know, if I sense even any slight criticism or so forth. It was a nature issue because of the way I saw my mom and dad relate. It got into me. All right? So we need to understand these things.
Just then what that looks like is if I say, hey, what you doing? You automatically, oh no, guilty, what am I doing? Oh, and then, you know, gets offended. This is what you're doing, you know? So those kind of things, if we're aware of them, can help us.
But yeah, she may ask, what are you doing? Because she wants to do something. And I hear, what are you doing? Because you're obviously not doing anything worthwhile. We need ears that can hear what people are really saying.
You're letting me use a GPS locator.
Yes, exactly. I'm hiding. All right. Now, why does understanding some of these things, why does it help in our marriage? Romans 5:8 says this, that while we were yet sinners, let me see if I had some things to fill in here that I missed. Yeah. Romans 5:8 says, while we were yet sinners, Christ died for us. And that this was love. It says this was love. That while we were yet sinners, Christ died for us. It's important to understand these things because we show the truest love when they're in the presence of offenses. Okay? In the presence of, and not in spite of them. 1 Peter 3:7. It says to live with your wives in an understanding way. Women start out a mystery. We couldn't possibly understand, right? That's why we have to learn. Be a student of your wife, men. Be a student of your wife. And women, be a student of your husband. We need to live with each other in an understanding way. We need to know each other. And don't have these sacred cow taboo things we don't talk about. We get those. We get issues. I'm not even going near them. We have to understand each other. To live with each other in an understanding way. In fact, it's so important here. It says if you don't, God isn't going to hear your prayers, man. So you better figure out your wives, because you can't live in an understanding way unless you do, right? And it's the same both ways. I'm not trying to pick on the guys, we'll pick on each other later. Philippians 1:9 says, and this is my prayer, that your love may abound more and more. How? In all gushiness, in all emotion, and just gushing over each other. No, he says in knowledge and depth of insight. We're going to love is going to abound more and more in knowledge and depth of insight. I know how to love you better. I understand you. I know what makes you tick. I know what you enjoy. Right? It's like when, who was that gal? Rebecca, she knew how to cook for Isaac, right? She knew what he wanted. She knew how to make that stew for him. That she learned what he enjoys and what he likes. And we have to do the same for each other.